All right, number 2, cheating. Surely there is nothing worse in sports. So I gotta double check to see what number I'm up to. Looks like I'm ready to start with number 9. 9. Cheating. There is nothing worse than cheating. Okay, that's a claim that the author's using. I look at the parenthetical remark, short of a bounty gate, I don't know what that references to, frankly, that is so despicable as to be criminal, and will undoubtedly in fact be officially criminal before all is done. That really is an aside. None of those claims are being used to convince me of anything. So I'm going to just ignore that. I'm going to filter that out. The longer the argument is, the more likely that I'm going to have to do a significant amount of filtering. Okay, so there's nothing worse than cheating in sports. Major League Baseball should have maintained the asterisks, should have allowed the asterisks campaigns against Barry Bonds. I'm wondering now if I'm going to have to fill in some claims. So I happen to know that Barry Bonds is a baseball player who was repeatedly accused of using steroids. I can't remember if it was proved that he was or if he even admitted it, but I know he was accused of using steroids. The asterisks campaign was an honest expression of fan disgust over what many believe to be one of the most egregiously unethical periods in the history of modern athletics. I'm going to rephrase that. That's a little bit vague. I have to use some of my background knowledge here. And of course, your ability to diagram arguments is somewhat related to your background knowledge. You may find yourself in the middle of an argument about a sport that you know nothing about technology that you know nothing about, something like that. And you just have to do the best you can with the knowledge that you have. So I happen to know that the Barry Bonds concern was about steroid use. So the asterisk campaign was an honest expression of fan disgust over steroid use. Note that it's like, this is interesting. It's talking about cheating. I happen to know from my background knowledge of what the particular, Barry Bonds wasn't accused of fixing games or anything like that. He was accused of steroid use. So there's an unstated premise here that steroid use is cheating. Look, that's important, because some people agree with that and some people don't. So by finding an unstated premise like that, you're potentially finding a weakness in the argument or the basis on which you may disagree with it. But I think it's clear that the author is implicitly using the claim that steroid use is cheating. Okay, and then keep going. Cheering cheaters is anathema to sports. And I'm thinking, there's some more unstated premises here. Let's make some more boxes. Okay, so cheering cheaters is anathema to sports. Let's keep going. I'm thinking that there's lots of different ways to use that. Calling them on it with crowd noise is a watchdog responsibility. Booing cheaters is a responsibility of the fans. Plus, it allows us to scratch that booing itch without being unsportsmanlike ourselves. It's a double win. Booing cheaters is not unsportsmanlike. All right. What is this all about? Well, all of these claims, I think, is it unstated? I think it's kind of unstated. I'll put it down as unstated. We could argue about that. It is acceptable to boo cheaters. And I'm going to put that up here because I think this is the claim that gives evidence to the conclusion. And all of these premises, get that out of the way, are going to be used to give evidence for that claim. Okay, so how? What are reasons given that it's acceptable to boo cheaters? Well, there's nothing worse than cheating in sports. That's definitely means that it's acceptable to boo cheaters. The Asterix campaign was an honest expression of fan disgust over steroid use. Major League Baseball should have allowed the Asterix campaign against Barry Bonds. 11 gives evidence to 10. Why should they have allowed it? Because it was an honest expression of fan disgust. I think we need another unstated premise here. I'm trying to figure out how Barry Bonds, and I said this when I was working my way through, but I didn't write it down. Barry Bonds used steroids. And that's another thing that people might argue about. But it seems that that's an important claim that is functioning in this argument. This is becoming clear to me now. Steroid use is cheating. Barry Bonds used steroids. The Asterix campaign was an honest expression of fan disgust over steroid use. Therefore, they should have allowed the Asterix campaign. All of these are dependent. If any one of these turns out not to be true, the other ones are just not functioning well as evidence. So if someone comes along and says, this whole sub-argument right here assumes that Barry Bonds was guilty of steroid use. And again, my memory is fuzzy on this. I don't know if Barry Bonds ever admitted it. But if someone says, but he didn't. So if he didn't use steroids, they shouldn't have allowed it. That's good. Okay. Cheering cheaters is anathema to sports. Booing cheaters is not unsportsmanlike. Booing cheaters is a responsibility of the fans. These are all evidence that it's acceptable to boo cheaters. Yeah. Some people may argue that some of these are a little repetitive. There's nothing worse than cheating in sports. But I think these are all quite different. So I think it looks like this. Trying to figure out how to fit it all in there. Okay, and what we've got is another sub-argument that provides evidence for 16, and 16 provides evidence for 1. So I've done that sub-argument. Again, I'm going to take the time to move this whole sub-argument down to here. So I've got one sub-argument here, I'm going to have another sub-argument here, and I might put another one over there. So I have figured out 2 sub-arguments. I've got more to do. I'm going to start moving on to the next paragraph.